Welcome to the Childcare Genius podcast, proud to be the world's #1 community for brilliant childcare leaders. Each episode will feature interviews with the brightest minds in the childcare industry to guide you into becoming a smarter business leader. Our hosts have opened 10 schools while raising 5 children. They are certified business coaches and are the top-selling childcare business book authors of all time. This episode is sponsored by Elif Childcare Insurance. Give Blake a call at 972-232-2258 to get a free quote on childcare business insurance today. Let's welcome to the Childcare Genius podcast our hosts, Brian and Carol Dupre.
Welcome to episode 70 of the Childcare Genius podcast.
We're your hosts, Brian and Carol Dupre.
Carol's voice is still a little bit froggy. She's coming off a cold here. So I'm going to do most of the talking today. But 70 episodes. So we are getting up there. We're almost at our 100th episode recorded. We did 18 episodes in season 1, 70 episodes season 2. So almost to episode 100. We're excited about that. We've got an action-packed episode today. Before we do, we want to remind you that we have extended our Black Friday sale on our tickets for Childcare Genius Live Conference in Las Vegas, April 14th, 15th, and 16th, the most advanced childcare conference in the world. You can get tickets at childcaregenius.com. It's unlike any other conference in the world. Details at our website. So again, childcaregenius.com. So today's guests are Andrea Wortman and Kate Fifield from Club K After School Zone in Portland, Oregon. Andrea and Kate are a dynamic mother-daughter team that has a very unique business model. I personally coached Andrea for many years, and Kate recently left the corporate world to help her mom grow her program. So if you ever thought maybe someday that my kids are going to run my business, or I'm going to sell it to them or a family member, then this episode is for you. We're going to talk about some of the challenges that they have faced working as a mother-daughter team and some of the different model. You know, they have a different model because they're in public school system. They're not in brick-and-mortar daycare centers. So great episode. Sit back, relax, and let's go ahead and get Andrea and Kate on the line. Hi, Andrea and Kate. Welcome to the Childcare Genius podcast. How are you guys today?
Hello, we're good.
We're good. How are you?
Long time no see. It's been a long time since we've seen each other. It's been a whole, 3 days, I think, since we left Oregon.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Carol and I were out in Oregon working with Kate and Andrea for an entire day and had a good time visiting out there. We'll talk more about that later, but it's good to be home. We missed being home. It was a long road trip, but really enjoyed how beautiful Oregon was. It was a lot like Maine, the beautiful trees changing colors and everything. And you actually still have leaves on your trees, where we came home and all our trees are bare. So we kind of enjoyed that. So before we get started, I'd like to learn a little bit more about you guys. So for those in the audience who haven't had the privilege of meeting you guys yet, tell us a little bit about your childcare program, how you got into the business, and just a little bit about yourselves. Anything you want to tell us?
Well, okay, I'm Andrea Wortman. I've been in the business forever, it feels like some days. I am a former educator turned business owner. So I taught preschool for a long time and decided I was ready to do something different. So I was just going to open a little tiny preschool, like 20 kids. And my sister said, let me help you. And we ended up with a 10,000 square foot commercial childcare center, built to suit from the ground up, that we ran together. Kate was 9 when we opened that center, so she's grown up with it. We had acquired another center about 3 years later. At the same time, we launched our after-school program in the public schools. So we were quite busy. I bought my sister out a few years ago, and Kate, now that she's an adult, has come into the business. It's been almost 2 years.
Wow. So Kate, so you grew up just like our kids in the childcare business. What was it like probably having your weekends, having to go do stuff in the daycare? Did it feel like the daycare was more important than you sometimes growing up? Come on, be honest.
No. So I actually wrote this down. You talked about this at the conference and sort of having that guilt for always working, right? But maybe occasionally as a kid I felt that, but as an adult, I have grown up to realize like the literal blood, sweat, and tears that my mom poured into this business, right? And the returns that our family has gotten in return for that, right, has gotten back, have been huge. My uncle, so, she went into business with her sister. My uncle used to call the car the phone booth because, oh, she's going into her phone booth, because the car was where they'd have all their business meetings. So on the way to soccer, on the way to my practices, I ride horses. So on the way to all this stuff as a kid, that's where they'd have their meetings. And so while, yes, it was always there, and sometimes that was annoying, she was always there, right? Yes, she was on the phone, but she was always there, right? She was able to go and be around because she had built the business up to a point where she wasn't in the center every day after the first couple of years. And so she was able to go and do things with me in high school and be around and move me into college, right? So as an adult, I have really come to appreciate all of that. There was a period of time, I think I was 12, and she asked me if I wanted to work in the business someday. And I said, absolutely not. At that point, she was, I think, still more of a owner director. And I did not want to be an owner director. That did not seem like my path. And so I took a completely different path. I actually have a degree in accounting and Spanish, of all things. And that has nothing to do with childcare, but I built my career learning more the business side of things. So I have a background in accounting and project management, software implementations. And then as I started to realize how hard it is to work for someone else and how many sacrifices I had to make in my career for my family, but wasn't getting those same returns, I started to realize that this was probably a great option. So we started to have conversations about what it would look like for me to come into the business. And I started to tailor my career choices to prepare me to work in this business. So what does this business need? Does it need someone who knows more about numbers or someone who knows more about projects, or, right, what does a leader in this business need? So tried to build what I could working for someone else, and then came to join, as the pandemic sort of wrapped up and people were returning to work. It just made sense for me to make that change. So I joined just about 2 years ago, and it's been great.
And that you're going to give hope to all those people out there that their kids told them, no way I'm ever going to want to do that childcare, because our kids told us the same exact thing. So things change, especially when they grow up, become adults, go to college, especially when they have their own children, they start realizing, maybe I want to control my own calendar and control my own life and have some of those things that business owners get to have that other people don't get to have. So love that, Kate.
So the blood, sweat, and tears from those first, 2 or 3 years, we eventually sold the centers after 8 years, and we just have exclusively school age now in the public schools. All the blood, sweat, and tears that Kate was talking about, totally worth it for the return for our families, the families that we serve, the employees that we have, totally worth all of that extra, really hard work to be where we are today.
Love that.
What
The trip to
challenges
check the burglar alarm at 2 a.m. We'd all get in the car and go drive. I mean, worth it. I still say it. It's worth it.
Carol's got a little froggy voice, so she's going to struggle here.
What challenges have you faced working as a mother and daughter team?
I was thinking about that, and for me, it is probably less challenging working with my daughter than it was with my sister. My sister and I are both, type A control freaks. And so there were times when we butted heads about things and got out of our lanes into someone else's lane. And Kate and I don't have a lot of issues. One of the things that we struggle with, and we just have to be mindful of it, is making sure we spend a lot of time together. So we have to make sure that, okay, we're focusing on work or we're focusing on our personal life. so that we're not talking about the business 24/7. And sometimes we do better at that than others, but we really try to draw those boundaries. Okay, this is family time. So yes, we have this issue, but let's put a meeting on our calendar. Let's talk about, let's keep that separate, because our families don't want to hear all about the business. My husband doesn't want to know anything. You know, her husband is used to work for me and has his own marketing company now, but he doesn't want to hear about all the things going on in the former company he worked for. So we just have to be really mindful of that piece. And then for me, because I've been solo for so long, I'm used to being in charge and making every decision. And so sometimes I have to just zip it and allow Kate in her position to make the decisions and lead the company.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think just like we have to keep in mind being family with family, we also have to keep in mind being work with work. So it's really creating those two very separate entities. So I think Andrea had written a note on her paper in prep for this call about not having family moments in front of the staff. So we have another family member who works in the company, and sometimes it's really easy to just get frustrated and want to just talk to somebody like they're your sibling or whatever they may be. But you have to keep in mind, you have, 70 employees or whatever it is, depending on you and looking to you for leadership. And if that's the example that you set, what's that going to turn into down the road? And so really creating it's this very separate, two distinct versions of yourself almost. You're the same person. It's just, what am I modeling right now? And what is that going to showcase for the people that I'm with? I actually refer to her as Andrea. I never, ever call her mom. And it's funny, in Jamaica, one of the other owners who works with her daughter, I kept saying, oh, Andrea this and Andrea that. She goes, do you always call her Andrea? And when I'm talking about work, absolutely. And it took a lot of getting used to for the first probably 6 months, but now it's almost automatic. It just, when I'm talking about work, it's Andrea. When I'm talking about home, it's mom. And
you guys
so
have a great dynamic with that. We saw that in Jamaica as well. I love that. What were you going to say? I'm sorry, I interrupted.
Oh, so it's become automatic now. One of the things I was going to say about the challenges of working with a family member or a parent specifically is you don't typically navigate conflicts with your parent the same way you would with a boss or a coworker, right? So figuring out how to navigate those disagreements is challenging, right? Usually you either let it blow over and you remember that at the end of the day, you still love each other and you just move on, or you have a blowout and you yell at each other and okay, you figure it out, or, you all gave us some great tools at the conference to manage things like this, but it's a very different power structure than a typical working relationship. So it can be more emotional sometimes because it's more personal, right? It's not a boss who if you left this job, you'd never talk to them again kind of thing. It's very personal. And then the other challenge is that if you work with family, the team will always have perceptions about how you got this job, why you got this job, especially if you're, the child or the person hired in versus, someone who started the business. So I really keep in mind, for other people out there who may be coming into a business with family, I really keep in mind just trying to always manage that perception. That's why I always call her Andrea. That's why I worked, as hard as I could to get the experience I needed before I came into the business. So nobody could say, oh, she's the pity hire, right? I worked hard to get the skills and to come in and be effective, be very respectful of the people around me who knew more about licensing and child psychology than I did. Because I acknowledge there will always be people who have certain opinions about how and why I got this job, but I'm going to do my darndest to be above board in everything I can to squash that. So, those are the two biggest challenges I've navigated, is just figuring out how to work through those disagreements and then trying to really keep that perception as high as possible. with the
Great point. Same thing happened to us. I could remember hearing Carol on the phone one time saying, "I'm going to hang up now," talking to one of my daughters. "I'm going to hang up now. When you call me back with your work voice, and call me back with me as your boss and not your mother." So, I mean, I'm sure that line gets crossed a lot. And another thing, I love how you said the respect of the team, because we always made our children do the same jobs as everybody else for the same pay.
Yep.
They all had to start at the bottom, and they worked the long weekends. And, even all the way up until recently, our kids had to ask somebody else for time off, not us. We never put our thumb on the scale. They worked the same chain of command. They had to ask their directors for the same time off. When they were sick, we didn't call in for them. And they had vacations denied. They've had time off denied. We never would put our thumb on the scale, and our directors always respected us for that. And when our daughters became directors and the operations manager, they had the respect of the team because they never were treated any differently. So that's good advice for anybody listening here who's going to be in business with their children someday. So you have no brick and mortar locations, and you rely solely on renting space from the public school system now that you've sold your brick and mortar schools. That's a whole unique set of challenges, as Carol and I saw when we were visiting your program last week. So what kind of challenges have you faced with this model?
Yeah, it's a totally different kind of model. The advantages are we don't have to deal with maintenance because the school districts handle, the maintenance. There's none of those burglar alarms going off in the middle of the night that we have to deal with at 2 a.m. with our family in tow. Challenges are we make a reservation for facility use, and any school district function has precedence over our reservation. So we get moved a lot. So I think you saw one of our programs, we were in the library instead of the cafeteria. And so sometimes it's challenging for our staff to know what to take with them when they go into an alternate space. Sometimes we have notice, sometimes we don't. So it's training and educating our staff that you will be moved at some point during the school year. You may or may not have notice. So that is challenging because people adapt to change in different ways. And then the other challenging piece is we have to set up and take down our stuff every single day. So we're in the cafeteria. We typically have an area that we store our items, and we pull them out before program starts and we put them away at the end of the day. So that can be challenging. And sometimes our staffing is challenging. When you're in a brick and mortar center, there's always somebody. There's a director, an assistant director, a cook, a bus driver. There's always somebody to call on if you need assistance. We only have our staff that is assigned to a location, which is anywhere from 2 to 5 people. So if something happens, there's nobody else for them to rely on. We have systems in place so that somebody can get there within a reasonable amount of time. We're always a short phone call away. But those are some of the challenges that we face on a daily basis.
It's unique for sure. But it's a pretty interesting model. You don't have to heat buildings, you don't have to cool them. The maintenance, I watched the janitor clean your space after you're leaving. So, somebody else is taking care of that responsibility.
Yep.
And snow removal, things that, we have to worry about, cutting grass. It's all somebody else's job, which is great. And, in pretty much your business is running 4 hours a day instead of most people's 12 hours a day for the most part as well. That's another good thing.
Yeah, we do some full day programming, and we run summer camps, and those are 10-hour days. We modified our hours during the pandemic, and we just kept the 7:30 to 5:30 full day programming hours because that works for the majority of our families. And then we have a handful of programs that we do run a morning program. So either from 6:30 or 6:45 until school starts in the morning, and then we pick back up in the afternoon from school dismissal till 6. So definitely a shorter day than being in a center.
Well, we enjoyed seeing your program in action. It was the first time I've seen an after school program live in action. I've coached other people before, but I've never been to one and seen it live. So it ran actually a whole lot smoother than I thought it would be. Kind of thought it would be more like organized chaos. It was very orderly structured. Your teachers were amazing. The kids were learning and having fun too. And it seemed like, nobody seemed bored. They were very engaged. I actually loved it. Your systems were great. Your directors, your team. I couldn't have been more impressed with what you guys put together out there.
Thank you.
So in September, you guys both joined us at our Child Care Genius Live, our Child Care Genius Leverage Conference in Jamaica. That was the first time we had met you, Kate. So can you share with our audience what your experience is like, what you got out of it, and I'm glad that you came.
The conference was fantastic. So I haven't been to, too terribly many childcare conferences, but I've been to a couple. And I mean, we've talked in some of the calls following the conference about how great the half-day format was, because we could go to sessions and learn for a few hours and then have time to digest that information, instead of the conference and information is spewed at you for 8 hours and then you don't have time to digest that and then you fly home, right? So the cadence of this conference was so different than anything I've experienced before. And it really gave us time to process and learn. And then the networking afterwards was phenomenal because it was built into the conference instead of trying to shove the networking into the 2 hours between the end of the conference and when you have to go to sleep. I've heard Andrea say, and my husband, who used to work in the business, that the networking is the best part of the whole conference. And I think that potentially still holds true here, but at least here it was built into the conference schedule in a very organic way where people could choose to participate in those, poolside networking or poolside coaching. And we were able to just ask questions. Hey, do you call your mom Andrea all the time? Just things like that. And, talking to people about their practices and what they've experienced, learning how they manage, talking with another owner on the East Coast about facing the same things we're facing on the West Coast, and just knowing that we're not alone in a lot of those problems. So, that was a phenomenal experience, and certainly learned a lot in the sessions. One of the ones that stuck out to me, we use AI already and we use Canva already, but in both of those sessions, we learned more about tools we were already using. I kind of expected when I saw those topics, like, okay, this is going to be such an intro to these that I'm not going to learn much. And then what was presented took it a layer deeper so that I could take away things and bring them back to the company and be even more efficient with those tools, use them at a layer deeper than we already were. So I loved that too, that the content was great in addition to the format, in addition to the networking. And then of course, Jamaica was lovely. That's not why I picked this, but it was a great perk that it was in, lovely, sunny and warm Jamaica.
I'm glad you picked it, Kate. Because it was good having you guys there. We enjoyed hanging out in the pool with you guys. We did poolside coaching every day, and that was fun, just hanging out. And actually, that was I think everybody's favorite part was being able to network and digest in the pool, where you wouldn't think a bunch of childcare people would get into a pool and feel comfortable.
Yeah.
But it was great. And you're able to drink in your hand, you're relaxing and you're digesting, and you're just hanging out with people who, and a beautiful setting, mind you, in a
Yes.
beautiful country, with people that have, as we say in the military, chewed the same dirt. We've been through the same struggles. We all can, we all high five each other, knowing that we've all had to struggle to make payroll at one time, that we all had to struggle with our centers or getting those calls at 2 a.m. for the alarm going on. We've all had those things, and we could have, like, we're sharing that common bond, and we just let loose. And it was fun. It was the best conference I've ever been to, and I can't wait for next year for sure.
There were a couple of days that I think I was yelling, I don't want to get out of the pool. Because I was like, no, I don't need to eat. I don't need to sleep. I'm just going to stay in this pool forever.
Yeah, it's a pretty darn cool pool. I mean, there's like 8 of them at the hotel. So there's a lot of pools. You can go hang out, and you can be a private area, or you could be with hundreds of people.
Yeah.
It was pretty darn cool. You're right. So what are some goals that you've got have set for 2024, if you don't mind sharing?
We have lots of goals, and we're in different places. So I'm trying to exit my career, and she's entering. And so our goals are a little bit different. So for me, during the pandemic, I got sucked back into all the day-to-day details because my team needed me and things were changing. And I've been trying to get out of the day-to-day details now for quite some time. So that's my biggest goal, is to get out of all of the day-to-day details. Kate is more than capable of handling those. And I want to get back to working on the projects and the long range things, and continuing my succession plan for the business. And then I think Kate has some pretty concrete goals. Our business model has changed quite a bit because of the pandemic. So all the great things that we were doing pre-pandemic don't work so well now, because parents have changed, kids have changed, the needs for childcare in our area have changed, and so we've had to adapt, and we need to continue to adapt.
Yeah, so for me, as we look into next year, it's really about identifying strongly profitable models for both student schedules and staffing models. Because like she said, we don't have a lot of 5-day-a-week attendance anymore, where that used to be the bread and butter. So that has shifted. The needs and preferences of staff have shifted. The culture of our staff has shifted post-pandemic. So I think that's going to be a big focus for us next year, as well as improving our policies and procedures, sort of with 2 aims. One, gaining back some efficiency, because I think we lost a lot of that. Our mentality during the pandemic was very much just figure it out, get it done, duct tape and band-aids, because the rules were constantly changing, right? And so just, figure it out. And I think there's a lot of days where we're kind of stuck in that mentality of, oh, we'll just figure it out, get it done, instead of relying on established procedures that are efficient and, follow a process. So that's going to be a big focus for next year, as well as really working to support our staff, to really feel like we've returned to normal. We have policies and procedures, but they don't apply anymore. What used to work doesn't work anymore. And so really understanding, how can we update those policies so that they meet the needs of the changes in our business, the changes for our staff, needs, wants, and culture. So that's my goal, as we move into 2024. And I think if I can focus on those things, then that will facilitate her keeping out of the day-to-day and focusing on her transition, to hopefully relatively soon exit the business.
Awesome. Love those. Great goal setting. And I love how you already have 2024 goals set before you even leave 2023. So that's the way to do it. And if you're listening to this and you haven't set 2024 goals yet, now's the time to set them. And I just recorded a podcast that's going to air right around the end of the year. It talks about end of the year planning. It's like, I never start my day before I finish it on paper, because I always plan it out. I never start my year before I finish it on paper as well, with a whole go and map out that entire year, what you want to do. Yeah, it's going to change and you make course corrections along the way, but it's so much better to start from the end and work your way backwards where you want to be at the end of 2024, and then set a pathway to get there. Then just, do it hilly-milly, set some little goals along the way. And then at the end of the year, like, what did I accomplish? A whole year went by. And so I tell you, 2023 went fast. Ever since the pandemics, it's gone really fast. And if you don't put some goals down, the years it's going to come flying by, and you're not going to get anything done. So goals are important. All right, wrapping up, last question. So you guys are both members of our Dynasty coaching group, which includes a free all-day site visit for us. So we flew out to Oregon last week, spent an entire day out with you. Can you tell our audience what you got out of spending a day with Brian and Carol?
I was so excited to have visitors. We never get visitors. We're out here on the West Coast, long ways away. So I was so excited just to have your expertise come into our program. We showed you a variety of our locations and got so much in return. Little tiny things that will make a huge difference to really large things that will be impactful for our budget. So I was super excited and honored to have you guys come out and visit us.
My short answer is I wrote some notes, all caps, so much. We got so much. I think the biggest takeaways for us, we identified significant areas of unnecessary costs or lost income opportunities. And I
Yes.
think the perspective that you shared with us was unique insights that we're too stuck in the everyday to see. And so having that outside perspective was pretty important, right? And you know, some of the things that we talked about were, okay, shake off what you know and what you're used to every day. Let's build it from scratch. What would you do? Right? So really shaking off the conventions of what we're kind of used to and stuck to and saying, rebuild it. And if you're going to rebuild it, like, what does this process look like? Right? What would you make this process, you know, if you could do it over again? So, you know, just really re-identifying areas where, you know, we could improve things. And that's not something that I think we would feel the freedom to do if somebody wasn't sitting there asking us those questions. And then I think some of the other things that were, you know, good for us to hear. I think sometimes we get stuck in the negative. Both of us are very results oriented. We're very you know, concerned with the bottom line, the final result, right? And sometimes it gets very easy when you are that type of person to focus on the negative. And so one of the best things I think was to sort of hear and see in the programs we visited, which were a great representation of every kind of program that we have, was to hear the positive things you had to say. Yes, things are messy sometimes. Yes, policies don't go according to plan. We're in the get it done. But to your point, Brian, kids are engaged, they're entertained, they're learning, they're having fun. So when that's happening, that's our goal. Kids are safe and they're having fun, and that's the mission. That's why Andrea created this business. So hearing that, let's not get stuck in that negative. So I think that was really good for me. Okay. And that feels like some of the things we need to tackle to make sure that our business continues to prosper. They feel a little more manageable just having that in the back pocket, knowing, okay, it's good, let's make it great, right? Let's fix some of these things and we'll be good. So I think that was a really good outcome from that visit. And I will tell you, my brain has been spinning and thinking about all the things we talked about, and
Mine too.
We've had some working sessions already. It's like literally been a couple days, and we've already had working sessions and, you know, talked about some things that we talked about in that visit. So it was really impactful for us.
Well, you made my day. And you know, it's a heck of an investment for you, and it's an investment of time on our part to come out. But we know it makes us better coaches for your program now that we've seen it. And of course, Andrew, I've been coaching you since 2018. You know, we started a long time ago. So we have a history of working together. So I knew of your programs, but boy, it's a whole different ballgame now that I've actually seen them in operation, and it changes the whole strategy going forward.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, coaching you. So I'm glad we were able to come out. So thank you for taking that investment in our dynasty level coaching program. And you're right. Sometimes somebody else coming in from the outside can see things that you don't see. And I'm sure if somebody come into my program, they'd see things I don't see either. It's one of those things where you get blinders on, and it's a paradigm. You get paradigm to way of thinking. That's why I like to clean slate people sometimes, say, if you could build this back up, would you do it different? And it makes you stop and think like, oh, maybe I would do it different. Because, you know, when you're building a building and you're already halfway through the building, you don't stop and do the foundation again. It's already built. Well, here, you know, in your business, you do get a chance to rebuild it if you want to and make it better. You don't have to keep building on parts that don't work if they're not working. And if it's working, fine, great. But as you can see, you could always make things better. So I applaud you for taking that investment. One of my biggest indicators when I go into a school on a site visit is when I leave my kids here or my grandkids here. And I have visited schools that I would never leave my enemy's children in. That's how bad I've seen some schools. They've been around this country. Your school, I would leave my grandkids in there. I played with the kids. I was playing soccer with kids. I had more fun that day. I got my exercise. I was playing soccer with the kids, and I enjoyed it. And I would love my grandkids to learn. So you got a great program. That's usually my judge, my indicator, how safe would I feel. And boy, you guys, all 4 of the ones that we visited were amazing. So kudos to you. Thanks for all you've done. And thanks for blessing our listeners and our followers with your information today. You're definitely, there's some great takeaways, and I appreciate you coming on today.
Thank you for having us.
Good. You guys have a good rest of the day in Portland, Oregon. And if anybody wants to check out your website, how would they find you? A little bit about Club K.
clubkafterschool.com.
All right, there you go. We'll put your information in our show notes if they want to check out a little bit about your program. And I'm sure they could reach out to you if they ever have any questions. And as long as you're not in Portland, Oregon, they'll be glad to help you. All right, have a good rest of the day. We'll see you guys soon. Bye-bye.
All right, thank you. Bye-bye.
That was a great interview.
Was good, wasn't it? We've been gone from them. When we get home 3 days ago. And I enjoyed Oregon. It was really fun. You had a good voice then. You weren't cracky voice, but we had a good time. And I think they found out they got their good money's worth. We found a lot of savings for them and a different way of doing things that'll help to be a lot more profitable. So we love site visits. If we could ever help you in any way, if you want us to come visit your school, we would love to do a site visit and spend an entire day with you. Just join our Dynasty level coaching program and you get a free site visit. We come there at our expense. You don't pay a dime. We'll even take you out to a nice meal as well. So we'd love to travel around the country or really anywhere in the world. We'll take anywhere in the world. So especially if there's anybody in Australia, New Zealand, China, Japan, Hawaii. We would love to tax deductible visit you. Tax deductions on our part. So England, UK, Switzerland, we'll go just about anywhere. We're not going to North Korea. We're not going to Iraq. We're not going to Afghanistan. So there are a couple of places we're not going to go, but pretty much everywhere else we're open-minded. So give us a shout. But if you want to get on a call with us and see if you maybe even qualify for a site visit, go to childcaregenius.com, go to the coaching tab and select like the free coaching call with Brian. Maybe we could discuss if you're qualified to join our coaching program at the Dynasty level. We guarantee 5 times results in that. So we'd love to visit you. And again, Australia, New Zealand is where we really want to go visit. So come on. We'd love to have you. I'll even get up early in the morning to coach you. Or stay up late at night because of the time difference. We'll make it work. Anyway, we like to have fun. Anyway, this concludes episode 70 of the Child Care Genius podcast. Thank you so much for taking time and listening to our podcast. And just hit the subscribe button so you won't miss a future episode. And we will see you with an amazing episode next week. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the Child Care Genius podcast. If you enjoyed the show, please do us a favor and hit the subscribe button so you don't miss a future episode. Don't forget to visit our website at childcaregenius.com to see a list of services we offer to help grow your childcare business. Until next time, thank you for being a part of the Child Care Genius community.